rock! Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Laura Marling record, Once I Was an Eagle. Laura Marling is a UK singer-songwriter. This is her fourth full-length LP. Up until this point, she's always been a musician who I've never really been enthralled with enough to enjoy one of her full-lengths from beginning to end, but for sure I have enjoyed some of her singles, like the song Sophia, one of the bigger tracks from her last full-length LP, a song that features some very tenderly finger-picked acoustic guitar melodies that follow very shyly in Laura's vocal melody. And Laura's vocal is a pretty impressive one. She has a nice range, especially when she's digging down into her lower end, when her voice gets really husky, sort of beautiful, and very womanly, which she does quite a bit on this new LP. Now, as her albums have progressed, Laura has been stripping things back more and more instrumentally, and I feel on this album she is really down to the acoustic bare essentials: acoustic guitar, upright bass, piano, hand percussion, but some drum kit as well, cello, and this instrumental shift has made for a very, very intimate album right here. Songs that are moodier, too. To me, the direction she's been going in very slowly, up to the point of this new album, is a very welcome change from her very early stuff, which was way more indie folk, much more folk pop, reminded me a little bit of Jenny Lewis or even Feist at times. And now on this new album, Laura is coming off way more influenced by artists like Joni Mitchell, though I will say the differences between Laura's songwriting style and Joni's are still very much apparent. Laura is very direct with her melodies, very direct with her emotions and storytelling, even though her lyrics can be a little cryptic here and there. Now, even though Laura is going a little quieter on this LP than she did with her previous, and that might seem a little scary, especially since Laura's demeanor is so subtle to begin with. On top of it, we've got 16 tracks on this thing, an hour of music, and I will admit this thing is off to a sort of slow start with this triage of tracks that really segue into one another seamlessly. If you're not paying close attention, it feels like one continuous song. Songs like Take the Night Off and I Was an Eagle and You Know, a lot of the instrumental performances on these tracks to me feels somewhat inoffensive, really not all that moving or exciting. Though there are some things I like about these tracks, like the building cello and guitar passages on the track I Was an Eagle, or even Laura's vocal on the track You Know, where she is sitting on the edge between spoken word and singing. And moments like this is when Laura comes off very, very earnest, and it really hooks me. Damn all the hippies that step empty-footed. However, I would say after these tracks, this album really, really does pick up with some standout songs. Still, Laura does not come on strong or anything like that on this LP. She is a gentle soul through and through. Getting emotion out of this album is a lot like getting light out of a very tiny candle. You just gotta light it and sit back and let your eyes adjust to what is being offered. Sure, it's not as efficient as a giant fluorescent light, but a candle does bring a particular mood to it, with its faint flickers of dark orange and red on the walls. Even though to some people on the surface this record may be a little middle of the road, I think Laura is actually deceptively understated. It is how cold and just how callous she feels on this record that obscures a little bit the interesting lyrics and melodies that this album does have to offer. Don't get me wrong, I feel like the handful of forgettable tracks on this LP and Laura's voice and personality, which are not that bold, does work against this album in a sense, but there are still plenty of songs on here that shine through. Plus, I think this is Laura's best record yet, and this is really the sound of a singer-songwriter coming into her own. I love the song Breathe with its winding and descending guitar and cello melodies that are beautifully crafted, and the lyrics on this track deal with love and the two participants in a relationship being mutually cruel to one another. And the song Master Hunter, one of the punchier tracks on this LP, and maybe my favorite track on here, has this really bad-ass acoustic guitar riff that just feels really desert, really just dark and dusty. And the lyrics that Laura lays on this track, I'm a master hunter, I've cured my skin, nothing gets in, it really paints Laura as this cold, leathery, sort of beaten down individual, beaten down emotionally. And her demeanor really reflects that. Laura has always been a singer-songwriter to me that has been a little underwhelming because her voice doesn't have so much oomph to it. And this album, for one song after another, almost reflects on why she comes off that way. The song Little Lovecaster is one of the quieter songs on this album, but it has this very sharp, teeny tiny, dreary melody being played on the guitar that to me feels very Spanish guitar inspired. And the way that the cello just somberly creeps in against the guitar and Laura's vocals, it's the first point on this album where I was really chilled, and I just snapped. I felt like, wow, I get it. I get why Laura is this way, or I sort of see the appeal as to why she is this way. I'm sympathizing. I'm being moved here. Because connecting with Laura's music emotionally can kind of be like catching a very faint, dying, and distant radio signal. There are moments on this LP where the devil tropes that pop up in the lyrics don't really read all too well for me. It feels like Laura's really beating a dead horse. And the schmaltzy organs on Where Can I Go and Once just feel a little too corny for my taste. But still, this album does finish with 3 of its best tracks: Love Be Brave, Little Bird, and Saved These Words. Songs that to me portray an interesting dynamic on this album. There is an interlude around the middle point of this thing, and it becomes very apparent by the back end of this thing that Laura is circling around a lot of the same lyrical themes, some of the same chord progressions or guitar play, like on Little Bird, which is the second to last track, as opposed to the second track, Once I Was an Eagle, Bird, Bird. Plus, both tracks have this ascending guitar and cello phrase in it. The song Love Be Brave has this beautifully twangy guitar melody on it, and the closer on this album, Save These Words, to me is really sort of the cherry on top for this album. It is the meaning of this album wrapped up in a nutshell. I mean, really the lyric where Laura very sort of tongue-in-cheekly says, "Thank you, naivety, for failing me again." That is really what this album boils down to. I mean, Laura is someone who is just downtrodden by love, and being naive, not being able to see the red flags, being able to live in bliss, that is a concept that Laura touches down on quite a bit on this LP. Really, this lyric is one of the most passionate points on this album for me. Throughout this LP, Laura displays love as this thing that brings her great pain, but obviously she's attracted to it, she's infatuated with it to write this many songs in regards to it. Again, there are some songs on here that are not incredibly memorable instrumentally, and Laura still to me is not the most standout personality in the singer-songwriter world. But I think she does have a very sharp sense of lyricism, a sharp sense of melody, great sense of song structure, and she clearly went into this album trying to fine-tune it as a whole piece with tons of songs that not only revolve around a lot of the same topics, use similar lyrics, reference one another. This thing really did feel like an experience, even if some points were a little underwhelming. I'm feeling a decent to strong 7 on this thing. If you've given it a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. I want to give a shout out to Cal, who will not be reviewing the new Boards of Canada album. Alex, Jeremy, who had a very passionate conversation with me about this new Laura Marling album, and Eric Thomas, who I actually mistook for Chris Rock in the vocal samples from that new Disclosure album that I just reviewed. Ex-NFL player and motivational speaker Eric Thomas. I've actually been subscribed to him for a while on YouTube, and I will link you guys down there in the description box. This review is my opinion. If you don't like it, here's a straw. Only the strong subscribe. All mistakes were intentional. And, Laura Marling. Once I Was an Eagle, Anthony Fantano, forever.